Well, now here's a new one. The World Bank Group is promoting a new practice it calls climate smart agriculture. Here's what the World Bank says, quote, agriculture is a major part of the climate problem. It currently generates 19 to 29% of total greenhouse gas emissions. Without action, that percentage could rise substantially as other sectors reduce their emissions. The bank, meanwhile, describes its climate smart agriculture as, quote, an integrated approach to managing landscapes, cropland, livestock, forests, and fisheries that address the interlinked challenges of food security and climate change. In other words, buried beneath all of those buzzwords, you have another agenda for globalist control. Our current methods of growing food are too free. It's time for globalist micromanagers to swoop in and dictate how things are done, what crops we grow, what animals we raise, what foods we eat. Just like COVID, they're using the language of crisis to justify one of the biggest power grabs in history. If you don't give us total and absolute control, they say, then the climate will kill us all. So hand over all of the power right now. This is a plan to globalize what we've already seen happening in the Netherlands. Remember, the Dutch are the best farmers in the world. In a piece barely bigger than Maryland, with one of the densest populations in the world, they grow enough food to be the world's second biggest agricultural exporter. Right now, they're getting crushed in the name of climate. The government's explicit agenda is to put them out of business and get their farmers to stop raising food in the name of the climate. Well, now that same agenda is going worldwide. Now let's think about this for just a moment. The world's population is growing. The amount of available land is shrinking. So what would make sense? Would it make more sense to give more resources to the world's most efficient farmers and train more farmers to be like them so that we could get the most food possible out of the smallest amount of land? Or does it make more sense to crush these farmers so our farms are less efficient and produce less food on more land? Of course, you already know the answer. Everybody knows the answer. So why is the World Bank and every other globalist institution choosing the opposite? Because this isn't about the climate. It's about dominance and control.
We know why the World Bank's involved, Stu. They want to be involved in absolutely everything. And as we see with the World Health Organization, everyone, give us your money. Let's create a monetary fund where everyone just gets punished and sanctioned if they don't comply with our rules when it comes to your health. And now they're doing it with the agriculture industry as well. The US Department of Agriculture has just invested or is investing $2.8 billion in climate smart agriculture, which sounds great. Climate smart. Let's support the climate. Well, they justify it by saying that there is strong and growing interest in the private sector and among consumers for food that is grown in a climate friendly way. That's a quote from a World Grain article. First of all, have you ever heard the market demanding that we grow food in a climate smart way? And climate smart essentially just means whatever Bill Gates and his cronies say. They talk about the fact that this is going to increase the competitive advantage of the US agriculture, both domestically and internationally, and support a diverse range of producers and operation types. But here's the kicker. I'll give you an example. US-based Riceland's Food is one of the companies that are receiving the funding. And the funds, it says, will help Riceland build a farmer-focused asset registry system for data collection, benefit quantification, verification, and farmer compensation. Straight off the bat, number one, first thing, data collection. It's very much the same as what we're seeing with, say, for example, the smart cities. And it goes on with an Australian plan here where we see Farmers for Climate Action talking about how Australians are on the forefront of climate change. You know, we've been used to changing weather in this country in difficult weather, but now it's so unexpected because of climate change. They then go on to talk about how we should depend on organizations such as CSIRO, who's previously been involved in weather modification and gain of function research in Wuhan. They're the ones that we should be trusting to talk to us about this changing landscape of climate. There's a range of different tracking apps that they recommend. The CSIRO's Smart Agriculture plan is also listed. And these tracking apps also include things like water sensors. Now, we know that in the city of Bathurst, and I bring up the smart cities because they say that there are going to be water sensors or water tracking apps that limit the amount of water usage that you can have. This is essentially what this is. They're tracking the production, they're tracking the water usage, and at any time, if they want to further engineer the food crisis or limit food to a certain area, or say that we have this particular shortage in order to starve the population so that you'll go and eat their bugs, they can do it through this technology. And this is happening worldwide, Stu.
Aren't bugs like toxic? Don't they give off some sort of a toxic substance, like all of them, right? I mean, We are not designed to eat bugs, but this is exactly what they want you to do. They want you to eat their micro livestock. The plan here is to just do away with cattle, with beef altogether, because it doesn't make enough money for the globalists. They can't control it.
Correct, but it's not just that, Stu. It's also limiting people's ability to interact with nature. You know that in Victoria, we have the agriculture legislation. I've spoken in great detail about this, which is essentially going to limit people growing their own food in their backyards. The same state of Victoria has just introduced new rules that are limiting people's ability to go out into nature. Walkers and riders caught not using government-sanctioned trails outdoors could face heavy fines of up to $924 for walking where the government says they're not allowed.
Have to laugh at this point. I mean,
it's unbelievable.
It is absolutely.
Από τη Σουηδία άλλη μια είδηση σοκ, γιατί θα έχουμε και επισιτιστική κρίση, όχι επειδή υπάρχει κανένας πραγματικός λόγος, επειδή διαχειρίζονται την Ευρώπη αυτοί οι αλλητάμπορες που έχουμε ψηφίσει και εδώ. Λοιπόν, Σουηδία, το μεγαλύτερο εργοστάσιο παραγωγής ντομάτας αναγκάζεται να κλείσει γιατί δεν θα μπορούν να πληρώνουν αυτές τις τιμές ρεύματος που χρειάζονται για την παραγωγή την ετήσια. Και σου λέει δεν βγαίνει, κλείστο. 500 τόνοι ντομάτες χαθήκανε, τι χαθήκανε, δεν θα έχει ντομάτες να φάει ο κόσμος. Πού θα τις βρει?
Θα τρώμε ανεμογεννήτριες.
Ναι, θα τρώνε ανεμογεννήτριες. Σωστός.
Ναι ρε, τα γυάλινα gummy bears.
Ναι, έλα μου, τι να την κάνεις την ντομάτα, φάει ένα gummy bear από ανεμογεννήτρια. Λοιπόν,
και ζωήφια εννοείται.
Και τα θονόη το λέει πάλι ο Πίτερ σου ήταν κάτω. Έχεις μετανιώσει που άκουγες όλους αυτούς τους χαρακτήρες για την κλιματική αλλαγή? Ακόμα. Ξέρω εγώ.
Όχι, κάποιοι.
Εμείς όχι, από την αρχή δεν τη φάγαμε την παπάτσα, αλλά υπάρχουν κάποιοι που το πιστεύουν.
There's only one way to achieve net zero, according to these people, and it's to basically destroy your agricultural industry. Not to shut down transport, not to, maybe rein in the sprawl of cities, but to destroy the food production of the country. And that's going to be very nifty when there's a surprise famine in the world. They can claim it's because of climate change and give themselves yet more power. So whether or not they screw up a country, they still win in some way. And this is not good for people.
No, you're right. That when we're all starving, they'll say that's due to all the global warming, and they'll introduce even more crazy things. We've had a couple of inspiring developments with the Canadian truckers and with the Dutch farmers, but you're kind of rather pessimistic about the idea that the masses are going to rise up and actually say to their leaders, enough of this rubbish, we're done with it.
And now we have farmers desperately begging the people they're trying to feed, help us, we are not going to be able to keep producing food. And nothing will happen. Until every person in the middle class and the working class can't pay their bills and can't feed their children, nothing is going to happen. We watch it in every separate generation of humanity. We always do things the hard way. I'm not sure what it is about humanity. We have this flaw where we're quite apathetic and lazy until it affects us personally. And this is going to be our great undoing. Unless everybody goes, we should be paying attention, it's going to keep getting worse.
New Zealand has unveiled a world first, a sheep and cow burp tax to curb emissions. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced the levy on Tuesday as a step towards cutting the country's greenhouse gases. Farmers will have to pay for gas emissions from their animals, such as methane from burps and farts, and nitrous oxide in urine. Ardern said farmers will be able to recoup the costs by charging more climate-friendly products. New Zealand has a population of 5 million people, but over 6 million beef and dairy cattle. Gases emitted by the farm animals are some of the country's biggest emissions. The opposition and Conservatives say the plan would actually increase worldwide emissions if farmers sell up and instead move to countries that are less efficient at making food. Farming groups are outraged.
Farmers are going to be paying a price for their emissions. We should be recognised for all of the sequestrations that are happening on our farm.
Those farmers will, be under more pressure. Their profits are under pressure. They'll look to, they'll reach a point where they're saying, all right, we're out of here. The only people that will buy it will be generally offshore firms that are buying up for carbon credits to offset their CO2 emissions.
Ardern believes the plan will enhance the New Zealand export brand. But Greenpeace has also criticised the tax, saying it misses the mark.
Ghana's a pretty little country, peaceful place, actually, on the west coast of Africa. 3 years ago, Ghana was in great shape. It had one of the fastest growing economies in the world. In fact, it had so much energy over most of the last decade, it was exporting it to its neighbors in West Africa. Now, those energy exports from Ghana peaked in 2014. Why that year? Well, because the next year, the World Bank published this headline on its website, quote, World Bank approves largest ever guarantees for Ghana's energy transformation. Ooh, when they promised to transform your energy, slow down. But Ghana didn't slow down. They just kept going. And the World Bank promised to provide, and we're quoting, technical assistance for energy sector reforms and the drafting of a new renewable energy law. So in return for all this help, Ghana agreed to limit its carbon emissions. And then they entered the Paris Climate Agreement. Oh, how virtuous. What happened next? This is the part you don't read that much about. Last year, Ghana experienced a complete shutdown of its national power supply. Oh, no more electricity. No emissions because we have no electricity. And blackouts have continued since then. Just yesterday, a news source in Ghana reported that, quote, residents in parts of the Ashanti region who have been hit with power cuts are without water as well. Because it turns out you need electricity to provide water. Also to grow food. Now, this is not a small thing. The Ashanti region has millions of people living in it. They're all now living in the Stone Age. And it's not just the energy grid that's now compromised in Ghana. International observers say the country is now facing severe food shortages and hunger, starvation within a matter of months. Why is that? It's a fertile country, hardworking people. Well, now they're running out of fertilizer. Why? Well, because for years, Sandy Cortez's friends in the NGO community pushed Ghana toward less efficient, more expensive organic fertilizers. And the government of Ghana, because it's not a rich government, caved. Last year, according to Ghana's news service, Ghana's agricultural minister, quote, urged local farmers to adopt an organic agriculture system to reduce the impact of climate change. Oh, what happened then? Well, the good people of Ghana, while they feel good about their fight against climate change, are now starving.